everybody, and welcome to the National Volunteer Fire Council's Roundtable. Today, we're going to be talking about the use of social media as a volunteer recruitment retention tool. And we know that many volunteer fire and EMS departments across the country are facing barriers to recruitment and retention. As departments look for effective tools, implementing a plan to utilize social media should definitely be at the top of their list. Social media can add such a great benefit to both your recruitment and your retention efforts. So think about this. Has your department embraced social media? How are you doing that? Let us know in the chat what you're doing with social media, what you found to be helpful, and be sure to drop your department's social media sites in the chat so we can start to follow one another. Over the next hour, we'll definitely be exploring different tools and tips for using social media so that you can bolster your recruitment and retention. And we're going to talk about how we can use social media to engage our stakeholders within our community. So I'm Dr. Candace McDonald, and I am the Deputy CEO of the National Volunteer Fire Council. I am also a volunteer firefighter in my own community and been in the fire service for almost 2 decades. But what I'm really excited is about our lineup of guests that we have today. So I'd like to introduce each of them and have them tell you a little bit about themselves. I will first start with our NVFC director, Mr. Paul Acosta.
Thank you, Candace. Thanks for having me on board. And Walter and Ryan, it was a pleasure to meet you, and Maggie for putting all this together. My name is Paul Acosta. I am from the Brush Volunteer Fire Department in a little town, 5,000 folks here in northeastern Colorado. I've been a member of the fire service for over 30 years, served in the EMS service for 12 years. So just have been that, and I've just been very active in my department. And I've also become a school teacher that now teaches the skills that I learned in the fire service. So I also have what's called career technical education. I'm an instructor for firefighting as well as EMS here at our school district in Brush.
Great. And I know that Paul definitely has a love for social media. I've heard him talk about that since I've met Paul, and being that he's around all those kids all day, he should definitely have the know about what's happening and what we need to know. So thank you, Paul, for being here. We can't wait to hear your expertise.
Thank you.
And let's move on to my good friend, Mr. Walter Campbell.
Hello, Walter Campbell. I am the recruitment and retention strategist at First Arriving, and been in the recruitment industry for about almost 10, 15 years. Prior to me being the strategist at First Arriving, I was a recruitment and retention coordinator at Burtonsville Volunteer Fire Department in Montgomery County, Maryland. And before that, I was enlisted an officer recruiter with the United States Air Force down in southern New Jersey. So it's really good to be here, and great meeting everyone, and can't wait for the conversation.
And most importantly, if you don't know, Walter is also a comedian.
I am. Almost 30 years as a stand-up comic, toured across the country, performed with everyone from Three Doors Down to Sinbad to Mary J. Blige, everybody and anybody in between.
Yes. Well, thank you, Walter, for being here. And I know that you bring a lot of expertise to the table from your work with First Arriving, from working in the fire service, and also your military background, which thank you for your service to our country.
Thank you.
And next up, we have a longtime friend of mine, Ryan Doughton from New Jersey. Ryan, welcome. Ryan, you're on mute. There you go.
Yeah, no, I'm good now. So my name is Ryan Doughton. I'm with the East Franklin Volunteer Fire Department in Somerset, New Jersey. I have been involved in fire service for a little over 20 years. My full-time career is police. I work in the city of New Brunswick, right next to where I volunteer. In the fire department, I've been involved in all the ranks up to assistant chief, and now I hold the rank of safety officer. And I also am on the executive board, which we handle our recruitment and retention on our volunteer fire department. I spend a lot of time with the youth in Somerset County through the juvenile youth fire safety programs. And my job in the current position I sit in is recruitment, retention, and betterment of the youth of the fire service. So anything and everything I can bring to better somebody else, including everybody that's on this call, I'm more than willing to spend the time to do so. I am huge into social media. So anything it comes to social media, I will give you all the best tips and pointers to make your fire department the best that it can be. So I'm very, very glad to be here and amongst all these awesome faces.
Oh, well, thank you, Ryan. We can't wait to hear the wisdom that you have to share with our audience. And thank you for that, all you're doing for our youth. We definitely know that the youth, they're the future of our industry. So we need to definitely have that conversation about how can we engage them. So again, thank you all for being here. The NVFC is grateful to each and every one of you for taking the time out today to be here. So as we talk about social media today and using that for recruitment retention, I do want to remind everybody that today's discussion will last about an hour. So some of that'll depend on how many questions that we receive. And again, we want to continue this conversation. So be sure if there's things that we don't cover, jump onto Volunteer Voices and post some of those questions there. Let's keep that conversation rolling. So I definitely have some questions lined up to get us started today. But again, we want to hear from our audience. So drop those questions in. Let us know what we can answer, because this session, this is a tool for you. And we want to make sure that you're getting the answers that you need. So drop them in the Q&A and we'll do our best to answer it. And if we don't have the answer, we all have a lot of smart friends. We can get you the answer and make sure we get that information back to you. So let's just get started here. And I'm going to start with you, Walter. I'm going to pick on you a little bit. So we know that social media is constantly changing and there are new platforms and they're making their appearances. Like every time, like Twitter is no longer, now we have X. So many of us open our phones. It's like, wait, what is this X? But we know that as we hear from our younger generation, Facebook is now for us seasoned firefighters. And so what are the must-have social media channels that departments should be embracing?
Oh, wow. Good question. So for me, I think that you got to have the big three, right? Facebook, of course, Instagram, and TikTok. And I think with those three, you'll be able to cover all of your demographics of audience and leads and candidates that you're looking for. The younger generation with TikTok, all the way to what, like you said, our seasoned folks with Facebook. So I believe that the big three are going to be your Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. For those departments that are out there that have either full-time, part-time, or paid on call, I would include LinkedIn to the big three, because those folks are looking for jobs and positions as well. So that would be a very good platform to post and recruit from as well. YouTube, if your department is very engaging in video and the helmet cams or training videos that, when you have training nights, drill nights, if you're recording those types of environment and that incidents with the helmet cams, then I would add YouTube to that as well, because YouTube is purely video based. So just getting started, those four, those five, but the big three going with Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And we know when we look at data, YouTube has the highest number of users among the social media platforms. So I love that suggestion about, getting some of those videos on YouTube. And once you put those on YouTube, you can take those videos and put them on Facebook. You can, tweet. I don't know if you call it exit out now. I don't know what the right term is. But yeah, you can share those videos. So I think that it is really great feedback. And so thank you for sharing that. So Ryan, I know your department has been super active over the years in using social media for retention. What are some of the ways that departments can use social media as a tool for retention?
So the big thing is, when it comes to the social media, before I get into the retention aspect of it, is don't just have one person in control of your social media. Have it as a committee, whether it's 3, 4, 5 people that you trust to monitor stuff that's responded to monitor the post, to make sure that, they're sound in their verbiage, they're we'll say politically correct in 2023. They're not going to get anybody in trouble or get anybody involved in any lawsuits. You want to have a committee be there, because each person might see a view and a post a little differently than the other one does. So having a committee is key when it comes to social media. As far as the retention aspect of it goes, we'll start off with Facebook. So when we first developed the Facebook account, which again we talked about, now it's the seasoned firefighters social media. We started doing member of the week, rookie of the month, top firefighter, and then we expanded from that to allow our membership family members to get recognized. So like, for example, if somebody has a new daughter or a new son that's brought into the world, or they have a new accomplishment that they've done, like they got a new job, or they've expanded their life in any aspect, we post it on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok now, and we just make sure that the current membership that we have is recognized for all the good that they do. Any training courses that the membership takes, if they get a certificate and it expands them on our fire department, we want to recognize that. We want to recognize the wives of the firefighters, the husbands of the firefighters, because it's so key to the fire service now in 2023, because it's very difficult nowadays to get membership, especially new members in the fire service, when you're not recognizing their accomplishments both on and off duty. So that's one of the many things we do with retention aspects.
I love that, Ryan, and thanks for sharing. I know one of the really cool things when I got to come and spend some time visiting your fire department is that your department, when I was there, we went out to a community block party, and there were so many photos taken and then shared on the social media. So I thought that was a great way to kind of recognize those firefighters that were in there dancing with the kids and having a great time, and to really kind of embrace them, because we know when we do share things on social media, that's about our members, their loved ones reshare it, and maybe their churches reshare it, or their employers reshare it. So we see that organic spread. So I think that's great information. Yeah, and I did want to kind of touch right in the chat. Someone mentioned about TikTok, about about the concern with the federal government saying, hey, you can't use that. And I can tell you, I was a federal employee until last year, and yeah, we were not allowed to have TikTok on our federal phones. And if you're a contractor with the federal government and they're paying for that phone and that's part of that, you can't do that. So yeah, if you're in the federal side, that is something to think about. But if you're in the community side, you do have that, being able to use that depending, on what your community's rules are. So that is a great point. So I want to talk about with all these different tools. There's so many of them out there. Paul, you're a busy guy, but I know you embrace social media. And how do you manage the time and effort needed to make content, to engage with your followers? And what advice do you have for that? And how do you, make sure that you're resharing credible information?
Stay up late. No, I'm kidding. The biggest thing you got to do is, I like what Ryan says, you got to have more people involved. At the State Fire Association, even here in Colorado, we have more people that kind of put our heads into and find the time. But you do have to make a time in your day when you're going to look and review it, all of the information out there in social media. Walter did a great job labeling some of the top ones out there, and it's funny because you go back 10 years to MySpace, as you all remember. We probably all used it when for us older veterans here on the fire service, we like best thing ever, MySpace, right? Okay, and now look at us today. I mean, I learned so much, and being at this school here with the students, they teach me how to manage my time too. You'd be surprised, listening to a youth is actually helpful. I know we think the opposite, but they're incredible. They show me everything. I have TikTok, of course, which Walter mentioned. Snapchat's a big one. You've got, ready for this one? How many of you have Be Real? I do. Be Real is big. It is one of the biggest out there. And communication, today, kids don't communicate like we used to. The old handshake, the old knuckles and high fives. Today, these kids, they'd rather tap phones and call you knuckles that way. And to me, finding that time, like I said, it's just learning how to manage it and knowing that you've got to devote some time to read those posts and share resharing. And you asked about to make sure if it was good information to share. Some things that I've learned is always be skeptical and curious when you get a post and before you send it out there, and cross-reference it, not just through one source, go through multiple sources. And the other thing I like to do is check the date and context, because I've seen so many posts where they've been repeated and you're going, wait a minute, that was from 10 years ago. Why are they sharing that one again? So you've got to be careful about that, and always evaluate the bias and the fact checkers, okay? Because it's out there. You can usually find lots of sites that will help you verify any of those information. People are like, oh, the government, you don't trust on that. Well, you could still go through and check even on their sources and other sources, other sites that are out there to help people verify those. So just keep that in mind if you are doing that, because you don't want to put yourself in any risks. I saw one of the members talk about, there's opinions on what should be posted. That should be set in place prior to you starting to make those posts. That's a department decision. It should be made and said, hey, this is what we are only going to post, so that you can avoid all that confusion down the road.
Yeah, I agree. And, looking at how do we start with sharing credible information? I always say, look who's already sharing information. Go to the NFPA site. There's a lot of stuff you can reshare from them. We know NFPA has a lot of great prevention messages, and some of the other sites, DHS has some great prevention messages. And, if you're not sure, utilize some of those sites that that you're credible while you're building, your social media and looking at managing that. The other thing, with the marketing students I have in my class, I always tell them to develop a plan, develop that calendar, and you can start to plug in. It's like thinking about, oh, this is, October is what? Fire Prevention Week. We can start planning ahead for that. Let's see, it's fall, it's going to be campfire time. Well, we can, do some fire safety messages around that. And sports seasons, what do we know about injuries? What messages can we share, and start to think, back to school messaging? Is there something that we can share, and developing that plan? And a lot of those platforms that you can also schedule things out as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. And
Yes.
Walter, I know
Yes.
you've had a lot of experience with scheduling, post out. Do you want to kind of share about that real quick, Walter, about how that works?
Yep. Yeah. And that's exactly what I was going to interject, is that you can sit down one Saturday or 2 or 3 hours, and you can schedule out a week's worth of posts, a month's worth of posts, and these platforms will send it out. You designate the day and the time to Saturday 9 a.m. And at Saturday 9 a.m., this post is already going to go out. And so if you can carve out an hour, 30 minutes, and create and cultivate a certain number of posts, you don't have to worry about, oh, wow, I need to post this week, or I need to post next week. You've already been able to schedule out these posts, and it does it automatically. And so a lot of these social media platforms do that. And then there are also certain apps that will help you do that as well. With Hootsuite is one, for example, that will actually post on all of your social media channels by utilizing one post. So you type it in once, you hit send, and it's going to automatically post it to Instagram, TikTok, and all of your other social media channels.
And the one thing I always caution people, and I love doing the scheduling posts, is also remember that if there's some type of event within your community or in the world, you may need to go and cancel that post, because you don't want to be insensitive to what's going out. We've seen some companies get in trouble. They may have had some things scheduled out. It went out and it just looked very insensitive to some type of, whether it be a world disaster or a community disaster. So being mindful about that. The other thing with scheduling is that, and I love that you guys brought up about, get some help, have other people getting involved, is that you can create a shared Google document or spreadsheet where you have other people helping you draft those messages. Then let's say Paul is the chief, then can kind of look at those and say, yes, this is approved with this photo. No, I don't think I want to write this. Let's edit this. And, you can have more than one people input onto some type of shared spreadsheet, so that you can pull messages from that. Because it's, at the end of the day, we know that that there's somebody needs to vet some of those messages as well. So, but that also gives you the opportunity to get a bunch of different people involved with creating some different content. So, yeah. And moving kind of on to the next question, Walter, I know there's a lot of people that are looking at how do we grow our followings? What can we do? So, what's a tool or a resource that's helped grow your social media outreach, and how can departments duplicate that? And I know you are like so super creative and you're always coming up with something fun on your social media.
Oh, wow. So I think one of the biggest resources that I was able to use to help grow outreach and engagement were my members, right? The members of the department. And that, I think that's the easiest one. And that's by tagging them, creating possible membership highlights where you highlight a member, you tag them in it, and those types of things. And then what that does is that creates that buzz, and that also gets that post outside of your social media network, right? And so if you tag someone in that post, now that you have your social media network and also theirs. And so that helps expand and grow. The other thing is you can, I would say, you have your department members share, right? Anything that you post, anything that your department posts, if they're on social media, having them share your posts, your department posts, again, definitely increases your engagement. So, you can even be very creative in that and come up with contests for who does the most shares this week, or which member does the most share per month, and possibly, make it a contest and make it competitive. And so I was able to be successful in utilizing that at Burtonsville, and it helped. It worked out, and it's just creating that engagement outside of your network.
I think that is some great advice. Some other ways that I've seen some resources to really help grow your social media is throw questions on there. People like to give input. So if you ask a question, put that on there, or even we used to do Trivia Thursday and would put a little safety trivia thing up there. But, find ways for people to engage, because the more your followers engage, the more the algorithm boosts up your social media platform. So think about how can we engage, and you mentioned about members sharing things and tagging them, and I know in the comments somebody brought up about are there risks with providing personal information or sharing photos or information about our members? And what I always say is ask your members, are you comfortable, if we're doing a training, are you okay with being, your photo being shared on there, because maybe they have a job that I need to stay very private, or, I'm just not comfortable with that, or, they're just, a very private person. Just ask the question, is it okay if I share this? I mean, and that's one way to kind of overcome that. And that's the same with our community members. If we're taking pictures at events, I'm really big into getting releases or asking permission. Are you okay if we share this as we're interacting? And this is how we want to use it. Just communicate that and get that permission.
You mentioned the questions. One of the most popular posts I did at Burtonsville that we did, where we asked the question, do you prefer pumper or engine? And that took on a life of its own. Everybody was from across the country. People were chiming in, not even in our community. Again, it went outside of Maryland, went outside, just the East Coast. It was, everybody was chiming in. So it was really good. Like you brought up a really good point in those questions. So hopefully I'll see somebody asking that question on Facebook or social media soon.
I see Paul laughing. Tanker versus
tanker or tender.
And I'm a tanker girl, so yes. So that's been an ongoing kind of thing and running joke with all our NVFC family. Yes. And again, it's that same thing. Something as simple as that generates. Oh, look, Joel's on the chat.
Yep, we got Joel already.
Yes. So, but yeah, that, it's things like that. How can we engage? Ask those questions. I think that is so important. And that kind of takes, we have something else in the chat. Somebody says, we have a lot of old fashioned people who don't really believe in the use of social media and they want to kind of regulate things. And this is what I always tell everybody. And I go back to, this is my Sears analogy. Let's think about Sears. Many of us grew up with Sears. It was the best store ever. Every Christmas, they came out with this beautiful catalog where we could order all these great toys and people could order tools and clothes and appliances, everything. What would have happened if Sears would have adopted the model that Amazon adopted? where would they be today? Because they had that brand recognition, but they failed to evolve. So if we don't evolve as a fire department and we don't move forward to meet, the new technology needs, we're going to be right there, and out of business, just like Sears. So,
Well, and I think, Candace, that's where your leaders need to come in and step up and be the leaders and say, look, I'm sorry, I know that you don't like this, the way we currently are, with the policies, but we have to take and make the changes. You've got to show them the reasons why they're going to make those changes, are going to make things better for you.
yeah, absolutely. And someone in the chat mentioned about not having a budget for social media. My department doesn't have a budget for social media. That's the nice thing. Facebook, Instagram, all of those platforms are free. There is a little bit of a cost, obviously, if you're using something like we mentioned, Hootsuite to manage it. But what we've learned to do is, let's do a Google Doc that's shared. Again, put all of our ideas and take turns posting. So there are definitely some ways around that, that budget thing. We have our cell phones today where we can make really great and fun videos. And there's some really great editing software as well to make some fun ads. The other tool that I wanted to mention that is perfect for social media is, Paul, we have our Make Me a Firefighter campaign that has what in it that people can download?
I'm sorry, I was answering that question at the same time. Sorry.
So the question was, what's in our Make Me a Firefighter campaign that people can download to use for their social media?
Well, they can download the NDFC app. Am I answering it wrong? Am I missing something?
All of the social media, we have already made social media
Yeah,
things
we have
for
all the
you.
social media things
Yes.
there. Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
sorry. Yeah. So
Right.
they're all
Yeah.
in there. If you don't have a, marketing and being creative isn't your thing, check that out. We've already done the work for you. So,
Yes.
yeah.
So,
And that's,
so I want to actually touch on that a little bit, Candace, the Make Me a Firefighter. So we use the Make Me a Firefighter at East Franklin Fire Department. And one of the things that we suggest to other fire departments that are struggling with some of their recruitment is get rid of your borders. So what I mean by that is don't only accept the members that would live within your fire district. Expand yourself to accept members that live 5 miles outside the fire district, that work in town, that have relatives in town, whatever the case may be. Because when we use Make Me a Firefighter, we expand the search base to 60 miles outside of our fire department. And we're constantly getting interest in people that work in the town, that actually live in the town, and they've been applying to our fire department and becoming members of the fire department just because we've expanded our borders. So don't limit yourself to just your fire district. I know there's a lot of old school mentality when it comes to that, but it's 2023. It's the volunteer fire service. We're trying to keep it alive. So you got to expand outside your fire district.
no, and I think that's great in being able to recognize, some of those members that might live outside your district, but work inside of your district on social media is a great success story. And Ryan, I know that you guys have had a lot of success stories that others can learn from with using your social media for recruitment retention. What's a success story that you can kind of think of that you'd want to share with everybody?
All right, so let's talk about a success story that actually applies to multiple members. So one of the biggest success stories with recruiting our membership is we cater to a lot of the Rutgers students. And we keep a tally on the Rutgers students that want to become career firefighters from volunteer firefighting. And right now, for the last 10 years, we've had, I believe we're up to 17 volunteer firefighters that made it as career firefighters in various parts of New Jersey and other states. So that's definitely a huge success. And this year alone, 4 of our members went from volunteer firefighting to career firefighting because of the name we've built for ourselves countrywide.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing. And I know, and just being at your department, being able to, bring some of those Rutgers students in and some of the other people, you've been a pipeline to really to kind of train them, into a career. And I think that's something that we can kind of talk about on our social media. It is like, becoming a member of the volunteer fire department, it gives you such great career experience to move you to the next level. So what does that look like? And sharing, hey, we can give you free training in healthcare. Maybe you're interested in going to healthcare. You can become an EMT and try it out. My husband is a perfect example. He volunteered as a firefighter medic, went on to do the medic to RN program, and now he runs an ED in Cleveland, an emergency department in Cleveland. But he got his start in the volunteer fire department. And we hear success stories like that all the time. Those are success stories that you can highlight. You know, what are your people doing that are great, and being able to recognize them, and then having that call to action as you recognize them. Hey, firefighter Paul Acosta did X, Y, and Z. If you'd like to be like Paul, click here to join. So, you know, always having that call to action is really important. And and speaking of Paul, you know, I know social media has evolved, and we've been talking about all these different platforms. And how can departments stay on top of what is the latest and the greatest?
Ask kids, and I truly mean that. I'm telling you, the youth will tell you everything when it comes to social media, but you also have to be willing to accept it and try it. We talk about our communities and how they don't want to support it, but we are just as guilty as older people going, yeah, I don't know if I want to try that one or not, or I'm a little hesitant. But you've got to be willing to accept it and try it. And, you know, since I started doing Be Real last year, I'm like a Be Real buff. I can do it. I can do it with my eyes closed. And I try to even post extra, because now you can get extra Be Real posts a day. I'm one of those guys that work for that, to make sure I strive to get those extra Be Real posts. So that's another thing. And if I could just add on a little bit to Walter earlier, you had talked about how to reach out to people and get more notifications. You know, my sons and I, and a close friend of mine from Isle of Colorado, we have and Candace, you know this, we have our own storm chasing channel. We are tornado chasers, my sons and my friends, and we go chasing tornadoes here in Colorado. And we've had a super busy season here, and we live stream all the time. And we went from 2 years ago from about 100 followers. Honestly, as of this week, we're almost to 5,000 followers. Why? Because we go live and people reshare it and reshare it. So I think a great tool to do is always try to go live once in a while with your trainings. That really might motivate people to go, man, I didn't realize the fire department does that. And when they see that you're doing that training and they physically see it, you know, they're visually seeing it going, wow, I could maybe do that. I might want to go down and volunteer, and end it with that, or attach a link. Be good at hyperlinks and things like that, and pin things up at the top that says, you know, click the link to join the department, or click the link to learn more. Those are things you've got to be savvy at to help other people understand.
I love that. And, you know, and again, those are great opportunities. And that thought about, you know, going live kind of takes us to one of the questions that we got. And that was about, how do you feel about members posting on their own social media with photos that they take? And I'll give you my philosophy, and I'll let you guys all chime in. My philosophy is, our younger generation, as we tell stories through words, they tell stories through pictures. So let's find a way to meet in the middle. Can we, if we're doing a training night, can we create a shared drive where here's some photos that are okay to share on your own social media? Or if somebody's taking photos, can they come and say, Chief Walter, Chief Paul, is this okay if I share on my social media? Do you approve this? And you say, okay, but what context are you going to share that in? Or, you know what I mean? Or having that conversation, but trying to figure out how to meet in the middle, because those photos can be our biggest recruitment tool as they're sharing with their friends. So I'd love to hear from you guys what your take is on that.
I'll go ahead and go first. I can tell you, on our department, we tell guys not to take their phones with them, because one, they'll melt, they'll burn up in their pocket.
Right.
Some of these will tell you that, well, I just lost my phone, and we're like, well, sorry, you took it with you. So we tell them that risk first. But we also have GoPro cams. I think that's the biggest in technology too, Candace. And they'll take and download a video and share it with each other. And we try to make sure that's how we share our videos. But we're also very hesitant about sharing patient confidentiality stuff. You never share that, license plates, things like that. And we don't post it until it has been shared to the public on a press media release from the sheriff's department or state patrol, because we don't want to surprise someone and say, oh my gosh, there's Aunt so-and-so's car, and I haven't even gotten a phone call yet. So we try really hard to avoid any of that here in our community to make it work.
That is fantastic advice. And I should have said I was talking about training, not events. So
No, and training as well too, though. No, I agree. And
So,
training
yeah.
is the same thing.
Yeah.
Guys will carry their phones for that. And we have no problem with it, but we also, like you mentioned, make sure that the text is appropriate, because we don't want people to be seeing it in a different manner.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Walter, I'd love to
Right.
hear your thoughts on this.
Watch in training, watch the horseplay. And you just want to make sure that you're in a training environment, you're doing something that's you're supposed to be doing. I would add to that, don't go live, right? So just for those reasons, people in the background, sometimes you'll have somebody walking past and maybe they're not using the correct language that should be used. So don't go live. And then also review your videos in those training scenarios, and don't horse around.
Yeah, absolutely. That is such great advice. And again, and if those are concerns, again, maybe you have somebody designated during that training that is the photographer that takes those photos and puts them in a shared drive where people can use that. And maybe even coming up with some captions to use with those photos. So such great advice. And looking at, there was an anonymous attendee that says, what's the guy behind Ryan doing? And I want to point out Ryan is practicing work-life volunteer balance, and he is joining us from being with his family in New York. So again, we know that we are all trying to balance that out. So that's what the guy behind Ryan's doing. He's enjoying life. So
Yeah. So I want to touch on the photos thing too. So the one thing with the photos is we do have an actual department photographer. So that was another big thing with recruitment and retention, because again, if you don't want to be just a firefighter, or you don't want to be a firefighter at all, you can join the fire department as a photographer, and that's his or her sole job on a training, on a fire scene, at a family barbecue, at the Easter egg hunt, at any of the events that we do. The photographer just solely sticks to taking photos and then vetting them and making sure, hey, I don't just have the same 3 people in every photo. I have various different people, including their family members and friends, in the photos. And having that department photographer is key to just have another sense of accomplishment and a sense of belonging in the fire department. So I just think as long as you vary the members that are in the photos, you don't just post the same 5 members in every single photo, and you have that department photographer to vet that, it makes things that much better for you and your fire department.
Yeah, that's a great advice. I think, that it's a great avenue to collect those photos and to meet the needs of the people that want to tell the stories to the photos, but making sure that they're appropriate and that everything's being done on the up and up. So great advice. So I want to kind of shift the conversation a little bit. And Walter, I know this is an area that you at First Arriving and in general are just, definitely look at, and that's the data analytics. So we know that data tells us a story, if our messages are working and where we might need to improve. So what advice do you have for someone who's new to using data and how they should look at social media? Some of them might not even know that they can pull the analytics off of Facebook to see the impressions. So, can you kind of talk about what that is and how departments can use that data to see if their messaging is working?
Definitely. So most departments, and even on our personal Facebook page, we look at how many people are hitting like and comments as engagement, and that kind of gives us a really quick glance. But it's more to that. So with Facebook analytics, or on a lot of these platforms, they have these built-in analytics and that you can go in and look at, and it'll tell you how many people are looking at your videos, how long they're looking at your page. It'll break down for you the times of day where they're most popular, and all of this information helps you to decide and figure out when is the best time to post, what people in your network, what they're looking for and what they're engaged in. Is it photos? Is it incident reports? Is it videos and things like that? And so, yeah, you can utilize that, but what you want to do, the first level is the comments and likes. And then so the second level beyond that are the actual analytics tabs and areas that you can go into within those social media platforms that provide tons and tons of data. Versus there's impressions, there's likes, there's all kinds of information that you'll be able to utilize, and that'll help you continue and grow your social media.
Yeah, I think that is a great point. And again, data tells us a story. It tells us when's a good time to post. What are people enjoying? What do we need to post more of? And so that'll definitely tell us a story of what our community, what they're interested in, what they're reacting to. So I think that is great advice. And one of the things that we didn't talk about, and I'm going to drop this in the chat, is we did not talk about AI. And one of the things, yeah. So, and I dropped a link in the chat that you can actually click on and use this for free. If you go to this site and you go to chat, open AI, and you can go to and do a new chat, and then right in there, put create witty recruitment and retention post for the fire department. It will give you all kinds of really fun posts. It'll do it for you. So I think that we need to explore it. We need to utilize it. And then you can take that copy, post, into a Word document, and then tweak it to make your own. But it really helps you. If you're not creative, you can utilize AI to do that. And again, this is a free tool that you can use, and you can tell it, I want a witty post. And Hootsuite has one as well that you can actually use. And you can say, I want it to sound like a murder mystery. I want it to sound like a, old time movie, whatever that might be. And it'll come up with some of that kind of fun stuff. And that's another free tool. So utilize those free tools so that if you don't have your creative hat on, that'll help you. And are you using AI, Walter?
Yeah, and it's a time saver as well, right? The biggest thing, it's a time saver. If you say create 30 posts, it's going to create 30 separate posts, and then there you have a month worth of posts, or 30 weeks if you want to post once a week. So you can add, it definitely can save you time, definitely.
Yeah, and I'm going to drop the other one in the chat while we're at it. Okay. So yeah, I agree. Paul, have you had any experience with using AI yet?
Oh yeah, we use it here in the school district too, and it helps us put together our plans when we are building our curriculum and stuff. It just helps make the wording a little bit easier for us too. So yeah, it's a genius compared to me. I'm not a genius, so it works great.
And it goes back to that time management thing where we're like, oh, I need to come up with some posts for the weeks. I don't have it. Let me put it in. You could also put in the AI, what are some fire prevention safety tips? And it'll give you some. And of course you want to vet those, because again, it's a computer. It doesn't have the knowledge that we have, but it gives you a good starting point. It gives you, some a good foundation to start implementing some of those posts in some type of plan.
You can also set it too, Candace, by saying, make sure that it mentions these topics, and it will actually throw it out there specifically for you.
Yeah. Yep.
You can tell it to write it and sound like Denzel Washington.
Yes.
And it'll sound like Denzel Washington.
It will do your homework. The kids told me that.
Yeah, we've had long discussions about that at the University of Arkansas at our last faculty meeting. So yes. So, but again, what we always say is that it's a computer, so always vet it. Don't, again, just like your posts that are being written by some of your members, you need to have that vetting process. So we're getting close to the end of our session. So I want to kind of circle back to each of you. And I guess, what final piece of advice do you have for our audience? And Walter, I'll start with you.
I would say this, two things. Number one, start. If you haven't started your social media, if you're, maybe you haven't posted anything for a long time, just start. That's the biggest thing. Tiger Schmittendorf, the ace, the guru, my mentor always says, the biggest thing, the key is just to start. And my second thing I would say is be consistent and try and stay consistent. 2 posts a day, or, that's high end. Maybe you want to do 3 posts a week. Figure out what works for you, but be consistent. And in that, and just, if you think about it, 3 posts every week, and you do that consistently, that's a lot of engagement. That's a lot of getting your department out there so other people can see.
No, great advice, Walter, and thank you. Paul, any final advice for the audience?
Just kind of to bounce off of what Walter said. I mean, yeah, you got to be willing to give it a shot and try it, take baby steps. If you feel that way, fine. But be willing to try just a little bit more of that post. If you want to, if it was a picture tomorrow, make it a video and try just to see if you could get that out there. And I think the other thing that departments need to realize is if you use a actual business site on Facebook for your department and you get a certain amount of followers or videos that are getting shown, they pay you for it. Departments are saying they're strapped for money. You're going to get a return for it if you get enough people involved. So really think about that if you really want to help. And I know funds are tough for us, so consider that as one of your options as well for money makers.
I think that's a great thing. Once you get to that point, yeah, they will give you some funds, and it's an easy way to make some quick money. So that is great advice. Ryan, what's some a piece of advice that you'd like to leave with everybody?
So I will also give two great pieces of advice. Talking about analytics before, like Walter was saying, I believe the biggest thing is time. So when I say time is when somebody reaches out to you to become a volunteer firefighter, they don't want to wait 1 month, 2 months, 3 months to be a part of your membership. So grab a hold of them quickly, have a conversation with them. Don't wait a month to interview them. Interview them as quickly as possible. Make sure they're a good fit. And once you find that they're a good fit, bring them onto your team. Because again, we're in 2023, especially when it comes to the younger generation, younger people. They don't want to sit and wait. Their life is not promised to any one of us. Okay, tomorrow's not promised. So they want to volunteer for their communities. And when they reach out to your community to volunteer their time, it's important you give your time and grab them as quickly as possible and make sure they're a good fit for you. So I know that's one of the biggest things that we do is there's 3 or 4 of us that are on the recruitment team that are constantly fielding messages to grab people and get them interviewed within a week to make sure that they're a good fit for our fire department.
Right.
And again, the other thing I want to circle back to is, again, with times being they are and volunteer fire departments all across the country struggling to stay afloat, do not keep it limited to the people in your fire district. Okay, outsource, whether it's, we talked about the old school way of thinking. If people aren't in the social media, go to community meetings, go to your senior meetings, go to community barbecues, go to National Night Out. Let people know what you're about. Let them see your equipment. And, just reach out everywhere you can, because you never know where you're going to get that solid member that's going to give you 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Okay. Even if they give you 2 years, that's still great, because again, we're trying to keep the volunteer fire service afloat.
And I think that's a great point, engaging with your community. As we're engaging with our community, maybe we're going to a fundraiser, maybe we're going to that, and we're in our department uniform, taking pictures there, posting that on our social media and saying our members supported, the Girl Scouts or whoever, their fundraiser, and take those pictures, because when we tag other groups, we're showing support and they're going to show it back to us. So all really great advice. And I just wanted to kind of recap, some of our conversation today and what I've heard everybody say. One, it starts with the plan. Let's have a plan. What social media platforms are we going to use? Make sure we're staying up on the latest and the greatest. And we've heard about TikTok and Be Real and Instagram and X, which was Twitter, and Facebook, because we still want to stay in contact with our seasoned firefighters, and, be engaged with all of those. Make things easy for yourself. Have other people help you develop those posts, reshare from those credible sources like NFPA, the NVFC, some of the, other great sites. Look at our Make Me a Firefighter campaign, log into that. Find those sample social media posts that are there. You can download those and utilize those for your recruitment efforts and plug in your own department names there. Again, recognize your members. Ask them if it's okay. Can we recognize you? Can we take your photo? Come up with a policy within your department. What's okay to take photos? When can we take photos? How do those have to be vetted? What's our process? And just make sure that that's clear to everybody so that everybody is aware of that. Look at your data. What's working? What do we need to tweak? So the other thing that we kind of hit on a little bit, and I'm going to drop a link in the chat, is using social media definitely to communicate when those emergencies happen. I know that Paul mentioned about, going out and doing that tornado chasing, again, a lot of people look to our department social media. Hey, what's going on, within the department? FEMA has a really great independent study class that you can take. It's a webinar on social media and emergency management. I put the link in there and I encourage you to take, look at that. And again, as we're posting some of those things, we can still have our call to action. Our firefighters were out cutting up trees till, 2 a.m. Avoid this road because it's closed due to flooding or whatever that might be. If you're interested in being a volunteer, click here, always having that call to action. So there's just a lot of great information. And I think that we are, so someone says they're not seeing my message. Well, I guess it would help if I put it to everyone. So thank you for pointing that out. I'll drop that in. So, there we go. There's the FEMA link. Hopefully everybody is seeing that now. So I apologize for that. And again, I encourage you to remember that the NVFC has a lot of different resources and tools for you to check out. I know we mentioned Make Me a Firefighter, but we have our whole virtual classroom. And if you haven't logged into your NVFC member portal, we've given it a new redesign and a look. Please log in, check that out, check out your benefits. We are here to help. Don't let this conversation stop here. Get on to Volunteer Voices and continue the conversation. Interact with one another, because life is so much easier when we learn from one another and we leverage each other. Hey, Walter, what are you doing? Hey, Paul, how's this working for you? Ryan, what can I do with this? Let's balance out all of these great ideas and come together as one. So I want to thank everybody for participating today. Oh, somebody also mentioned that we have our odd hours, no pay, cool hat film. That is a great film that you can check out and utilize, put that on your social media, have a showing at your department. That's another great tool for recruitment. So with that, I think we've kind of come to the end, and we've answered about all of the questions that we have. We do have a few more minutes. Oh, we do have a new question that came in. Social media policies. Who wants to touch on this one?
Ooh.
And this is, so I always say, look at what other people have done and duplicate that, and always check with your legal counsel when it comes to social media policies.
Yeah,
So
don't recreate the wheel.
What was that, Paul?
I said, don't recreate the wheel. Just help
Yes.
and find someone that has a policy and put it in place.
Right. Look at some of those. I know the IFC has a sample social media policy that they share out and they've posted. Some of the other folks looking at Kurt Verone's work and Chip Comstock, who's also an attorney and a volunteer fire chief, some of the work that they've done. They have some great policies that they put out and they recommend. So again, don't recreate the wheel. And Joel mentioned in the chat that he's seen some social media policies on Volunteer Voices. That's a great place for us all to share our policies and what's out there. So I encourage everybody to check that out. And let me make sure we don't have any other questions before we wrap up. And again, I know we've shared a lot of information, and I'm sure that we could probably do a follow-up with all of these resources in Volunteer Voices, as we think, oh, here's a great sample social media policy. Here's a tip on sorry about that. So on using AI. So we can come together with a great link, for all these different tools that we've talked about, and we'll drop those in Volunteer Voices for all of you. So, and with that, I think we'll say goodbye. And again, I want to thank all of our panelists for joining us and sharing all of their expertise. I know I always learn something when I'm in the company of all of you. So.
Candace, thank you for your time too. I appreciate it. Walter,
Yes.
pleasure meeting you. Same with you, Ryan. You guys are amazing.
Pleasure seeing you guys, and thank you for making me better today. So
Yes,
I took a bunch.
Tools in the toolbox.
Tools in the toolbox. That's
Tools
right.
in the toolbox. I put all kind of tools in the toolbox. So thanks again. Very honored and privileged to be here. So thanks again for everything.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.